So the Carpathians are mountains in Eastern Europe and Western Asia.
Right.
Kardashians are a family of misfits from California.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Let's Pod This. My name is Andy Moore. I'm one of your hosts. Across the table from me is the good doctor, Mr. Scott Melson. Hello, Scott.
What's up, man?
How are you?
I'm ready to pod, dude. I'm ready to pod it.
Let's do this.
I'm ready to pod it. How are you?
I'm well. It's Friday. We're recording a day later than usual because it's been a long week.
Right, and good thing, too, because there's been actually a lot that has happened today.
Big news, right.
Right,
exactly.
Like, we would have had to put another, bumper, hey, guys, sorry, 20 minutes after we finished, all this stuff happened, so...
I didn't even bother getting out a nice microphone. I just got my little, travel mic and held it in my hand very carefully and spoke into it.
Can I tell you what I'm excited about?
Yes, please.
It is Friday. The weather is beautiful.
It is so nice.
Highs this weekend are going to be in the 80s.
Chance of rain.
The high on Monday is, I believe, 79, last I looked.
What do we do to deserve this?
I don't know.
Yeah, clearly. Somebody's living right. It's not us.
It wasn't me, so.
Not us.
But, so yeah, man, I'm good. Had a good week at work. Things have been busy at work. Had some...
Kids have been sick?
Actually, no. It's not been kids. I've had a slew of older patients that have had some stuff going on that's been pretty serious. That's taken a lot of time and just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. But those are cases that, as a doctor, on the one hand, you don't ever want your patients to be really sick, but they're also sometimes interesting. They're the cases that, as a doc, you're kind of really get your wheels turning. So.
Interesting, yeah. All right, so today's episode, we had intended initially to discuss the Attorney General, what that position is, as kind of a follow-up to last week's interview with State Auditor Gary Jones.
Yep.
But current AG Mike Hunter is a little busy running for re-election, and it was just a busy week, and we didn't get around to it.
We're working on getting Attorney General Hunter on the show. If not, then at least someone from his office.
Yeah, maybe. Or someone who knows what's going on down there.
To kind of
Former
talk
AG.
about what the AG does. Huh. I wonder if Scott Pruitt would come on the show.
Oh, man.
Talk about what it would be. We should. You know what? He's not doing anything.
He's not. Can we just play his music the whole time?
We should. You know what? I'm actually considering, should we reach out to former Attorney General, former EPA Administrator Pruitt and ask if he'll come on the show? And
the worst he can do is say no.
And talk about what the Attorney General does?
I just want to hear him say, "This is Pruitt Watch."
Do you think we'd have to tell him about Pruitt Watch if we did that?
Oh, I'm sure he would do his homework. I'm not sure he'd do his homework.
I was going to say, are you?
One would think he would do his homework.
Are you really?
Someone. Poor guy. He's had a rough time.
Yeah.
He really screwed up.
We're also looking at, just because, if you've listened several episodes back, we have kind of a plan and a schedule, and one of the things that we're really focusing on over the summer and leading into the fall is trying to provide some education and context about what some of the statewide officers in Oklahoma, what these people actually do. So last week was with State Auditor Gary Jones. We're working on getting Attorney General Hunter on. We are also working on a couple, in fact, really great guests to talk about what the Lieutenant Governor does here in Oklahoma. It's a position that I think most people know we have, but I bet if you ask 10 people on the street, maybe one of them could tell you what the Lieutenant Governor does.
Right.
And so
they're like the Vice Governor, right?
Right. Exactly. So we're not going to talk about who we're looking at, but a couple options that we are actively in communication with people trying to set up. It's just a matter of getting schedules set. So
we have sent our pigeons.
We've sent pigeons, and they've come back even
a couple of times.
Yeah, and so once we have that finalized, we'll make an announcement on social media or something, and we'll have that to look forward to. So we are still plowing ahead, diving into the recesses of the Oklahoma Constitution, at one time the longest governing document in the world, to learn what our government does.
That's right. And we hope that moving towards the general election, that we're going to have some candidates on. We'd like to have both candidates for a race come on, and so we will be sharing those as they come about. Also, I'm going to go ahead and I've got 4 quick announcements, if I may, before we jump into the news roundup.
You may.
Thank you. none of which are a point of personal privilege. These are all work-related. So first of all, if you are interested in joining the board of Let's Fix This, we are accepting some board applications. We have a few slots to fill. We've had a number of excellent applicants. We'd love to get a few more. And that will be posted on our website until the end of this month, until the end of July. Go to letsfixthisok.org, and it's board-applications. You can also click on the mission or who we are, about us, and there's a link to it there. You can apply online. That would be terrific. We'd love to hear from some more of you. I got one today. So that's that. Secondly, a reminder that in 2 weeks from today, on August 10th, we're going to have another tour of the State Capitol Restoration Project with project manager Trait Thompson. It was really cool. At our last one, we had a good crowd that came. It was the hottest day of the year, record-breaking heat. They shut down the entire outside portion of the restoration project, so we didn't get to get on the scaffolding. I don't think anyone was sad about that because it was like 113 that day. But the project manager from Manhattan Construction, who's doing the interior portion of the restoration, came on the tour. She was, Andrea is her name, and it was super insightful and just really great information about how they do what they do and why they do it. Also, Manhattan was involved in the construction of the Capitol originally in 1917. No, excuse me. I think they were involved in the construction of the Capitol in Guthrie, which was before that. And so,
did they have the original plans?
I didn't ask that.
Because that would be cool.
That would be cool. Also, I've heard if we can return the seal to Guthrie, then like there's some kind of time warp that happens in it. I don't know. I lost my joke there.
Interesting.
It's like Ghostbusters 2, I think. with Vigo.
Vigo.
Have you ever read the story about that actor that played Vigo?
No.
Holy moly.
Interesting?
Horrifying.
Oh, no.
He might actually be Vigo. Like
he's as creepy as he seemed.
Just a real I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but you should definitely Google actor that played Vigo Ghostbusters 2. It's a story on Gawker or one of those, and it's about
I'm Googling as we speak.
Yeah, or Gizmodo, one of those in that tribe of blogs. It's like his dad, like he was in the circus, or his dad was like a circus person, and it was just lots of like abuse and substance abuse and really bizarre. It's a depressing read, but kind of fascinating. All right, that's way off topic. Anyway, August 10th, if you'd like to come.
There's always room to talk about Ghostbusters.
This is why I like you, my friend.
Always room.
My mic stand is not cooperating today. I may have to go handheld. Capitol tour on August 10th. You can sign up online. Again, go to our website, letsfixthisok.org, or go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/letsfixthisok.
Okay,
We've got plenty of slots.
First, his name was Norbert Grupp.
Yes, that's right.
But
I think it's Gruppy.
But he was better known outside Germany by his stage name, Wilhelm von Homburg. He was a German wrestler, boxer, and actor known for playing Vigo the Carpathian in Ghostbusters 2.
Aren't the Carpathians... No, that's the Kardashians. Nope. On Star Trek, there's a race, an alien race. It's not Carpathians. It's not Kardashians.
So the Carpathians are mountains in Eastern Europe and Western Asia.
Right.
Kardashians are a family of misfits from California. I don't know Trek very well. I'm a Star Wars fanatic.
Oh, that's right.
I have nothing against Star Trek. Please don't hit me on Twitter. But
don't at me, bro. We'll find that out here when you're talking. I'll Google that more. It's Cardassians, not Kardashians.
Oh yes. Now, what are the Cardassians known for? I don't remember.
They are Cardassians were the dominant species in an interstellar empire known as Cardassian Union. They have played a key storyline in Deep Space Nine, which is not my favorite. I'm a Next Generation one.
I say I'm not a Trekkie, and I'm definitely. I would not say I'm a Trekkie. I know Next Generation relatively well. I was always a fan of Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah, of course.
I always felt like he was.
They tend to be dominating and aggressive, even in social situations.
So like the Kardashians.
It's like a wolf pack. All right. Man, it's been a weird podcast so far. Thanks for hanging with us. All right, everyone. Up next, Sign up for the Capitol Restoration Tour on August 10th. And then also, don't forget, go to our website, letsfixthisok.org. I'm going to plug it again and pick up one of our excellent I Voted t-shirts.
Yes.
It's a dark blue, a navy, if you will, very soft cotton t-shirt from the Oklahoma Shirt Company, fashioned with an I Voted sticker on the left chest area, just like, or very similar to the ones you get at the polls. Scott, you have one.
Yes. And remember, it's not a sticker. It's a way of life.
Ooh, I do like that.
That's right.
And if you enter the code VOTER, 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 right now you can get $5 off your I Voted t-shirt for the low, low price of just $20. Every dollar that you spend on these fashionable and soft t-shirts goes to help support our mission of expanding democracy across the globe, or at least Oklahoma.
Indeed.
And then, son of a gun, I thought I had a fourth thing. Didn't I say 4?
You did. I knew what the first 3 were going to be. I wasn't sure about the fourth one.
Man alive, I don't remember what it was. I think it was the thing about the... Oh, I know what it was. I didn't put it on my list. Likely, by the time that you are listening to this episode, we will have already posted a very important event coming up on election night in November. November 6th. It's a Tuesday night, election day. You're going to hear all about it from us between now and then with lots of crazy updates. But here's the preview. We're hosting an election party. That's right, folks. An election watch party. Scott and I are going to be there live on stage at the Tower Theater from 6 to roughly 10 o'clock.
Till whenever it's over.
Right. As long as we can, we're bringing cots. So Scott and I are going to be hosting. It's going to be like The Tonight Show or The Late Show or The Late Late Show, whatever you like.
Yeah.
Scott and I are going to be there on stage and going to have guests, some high profile, some low profile guests for interviews.
But all equally awesome.
And our plan is we're going to have at least one person, one candidate also having their watch party there, though we anticipate having multiple candidates.
Yeah.
We really want this to be a bipartisan event.
Yep.
We'll have one side red, one side blue, some kind of demilitarized zone in the middle with food where you can come together, shake hands, meet people who may have voted differently than you, but just hang out like Oklahomans, right?
It's going to be a really good time. We're going to have food. We're going to have drinks. We're going to have music. We'll be doing the podcast live. We actually will actually be
live streaming.
We'll
record it and post it later.
Yeah, but it'll be if you're not able to come, but you want a place for kind of real-time election results and commentary, we'll be streaming that live over the interwebs.
That's right. Facebook, YouTube,
through that series of tubes, the series of tubes known as the internet.
Right.
It's
a bunch of tubes.
It's going to be. I think it's going to be a really good time, and I think a unique event in Oklahoma because it's not. Again, we're going to have candidates there. There may be some candidates that have their watch party kind of, adjacent to ours, but it's not there to celebrate a particular candidate, cause, or issue. It's literally there to celebrate voting.
Yes, that's
right.
Exactly right. It's there to celebrate voting.
It's there to celebrate the fact that we live in a society that lets us choose our government and hold them accountable.
Well, the TV on upstairs, and when I say TV, I mean the projector will be on, showing some news coverage, but we'll be giving you play-by-play updates as we interview people. We'll have live musical guests, kind of to break up the action or to provide the action. Live musical guests. We'll have a house band. It's going to be an excellent time.
Andrew, is there going to be a cost to enter this?
No, it's going to be free for guests.
How often is that, guys? How often is that you get to go to an awesome party at an awesome venue with, quite frankly, pretty great people.
Right.
And all you got to pay is whatever you want to drink. Right.
Yep.
Like
free snacks.
Yeah.
Cash bar.
Should
be a great deal.
What the hell else are you going to do on a Tuesday night? Right.
Right. Also, this is a great chance, depending on who all is there, it's a great chance to meet some candidates and some elected officials because some of those folks are going to win.
Yep. 100%.
So that'll be really excellent. We look forward to seeing all of you there. Even if you don't like politics, come for the music, come for the laughs, come for the tears.
And you might if you come for any of those things, you may find out that you actually do like politics.
That's true.
I will even bet you money right now. Okay, let me take that back. I will not bet you actual money.
I'll bet you Monopoly money.
Right. But we hear this a lot. And it's one of my, I've started, not a soapbox. I mean, maybe it's a little bit of a soapbox, but
it's a shampoo box.
People talk all the time. Well, I I don't care about politics. I'm not interested in politics. It doesn't affect me. Just so you know, whether you choose to acknowledge that it does or not, it does. When we talk about politics, we're really talking about a root word that is from the Greek. Polity, right? The polity is the Greek. The polity is the Greek word for city. All right, and politics refers to it is the affairs of the citizens, right? Like literally means politics. Literally, the word politics comes from the Greek word that means the affairs of the people in the cities. Which, if you lived in Greece, prehistoric Greece or early historic Greece, you lived in a city, right? Like
right. Athens, like Sparta.
Right.
City states.
Yeah. And so that's literally what it means. So politics doesn't mean, fighting and infighting and bickering. Those are things that happen as part of politics, but politics is how we do things. Politics is how we make decisions. Politics is how we come together. It's how we govern ourselves. And whether you vote or not, it impacts your daily life, right? Whether you vote or not, Andy, you love to say this, whether you vote or not, somebody is going to run in the election and somebody is going to win the seat. And that somebody is going to make decisions that affect your life day to day, whether you give them your input or not.
That's right. Decisions are made by those who show up.
So you may not want to, read the Cook Political Report for fun or try and figure out how 538 derives their likely voter model. Like you may not want to do those things, and that's fine. You can leave that to people like Andrew and me who do this for a hobby because we're
trying to break it all down for
because we have an unhealthy obsession. But you can vote, and you can absolutely show up on a Tuesday night for a couple hours and celebrate with all the rest of us.
Hang out. That should be a good time. All right, Scott. Well, with that note,
shall we? Now that we've covered the Greek origins of the word voting, Vigo the Carpathian, Ghostbusters 2, the Kardashians, the Carpathians, and the Cardassians. Mm-hmm. Should we
let's do some actual news?
Should we start the pod?
That's right.
So
there we go.
There it is. All right.
Hey everyone,
we're really starting.
This is about politics. It's not just about us
whatever we talk about
making stuff up.
So news updates today are don't miss this segment, news roundup, weekly news roundup. We have the very first thing, we actually don't have an article for this. This is literally breaking news that happened I think a couple hours before we are recording. The agenda has been posted for the next meeting of the Board of Health. As I'm sure everyone listening is aware, Oklahoma recently voted to legalize medical marijuana. Shortly after we voted, the Board of Health met and came up with a series of rules to regulate this new industry. Some of the rules that they passed were somewhat controversial, requiring a pharmacist to be present in dispensaries, limiting the amount of THC that growers can put in their plants or that growers can grow, eliminating smokable forms of marijuana, requiring a pregnancy test for women before they can be given a license for medical marijuana. Those caused some consternation.
Mm-hmm. The natives were restless.
People have been upset. As part of all this, it was demonstrated that there were some unhealthy interactions between the chair of the State Board of Pharmacy and the general counsel for the State Board of Health. The general counsel of the State Board of Health has subsequently resigned and been charged with, I think, 2 felonies and a misdemeanor.
She gone.
The chair of the State Board of Pharmacy was terminated yesterday or the day before for offering a bribe to said general counsel to the State Board of Health. Allegedly.
Right. And however, her attorney indicated they might countersue.
Yeah, which is odd to me because, that's odd to me. Like, they have the text messages that show her offering a job to the general counsel. Right. Like, the text messages would seem to show a bribe.
Right, and they were like, she may have been wrongfully terminated, and all of us thought that seems unlikely.
Yes. In addition to that, this week on Wednesday represented the first meeting of the bipartisan legislative working group to address medical cannabis. They met on Wednesday.
Yeah, did you listen to that?
I did not.
It was interesting. I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder here, but they had representatives from Green the Vote and from Yes on 788. Bud Scott was there, and I forget the guy's name from Green the Vote, which is really the organization that's pushing recreational marijuana.
Right. State question like 797 or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think there's
796. There's two.
Yeah, but I don't know. I haven't even looked in to see why there's two. But yeah, so they were there. They provided a lot of context, particularly in relation to how these rules relate to other states.
Right.
One thing that I thought was interesting is that I guess California recently passed some new testing rules or guidelines.
Okay.
And ours were modeled after theirs. The problem with theirs is that no one can even afford to build the lab required to meet their testing thresholds.
Okay.
And so he's like, that's dumb for us to have that because they can't do it. And if California can't do it, we sure as hell can't do it here.
Right.
I thought, okay. Some context helps.
Interesting. So that bipartisan legislative working group met. The State Board of Health said that they are going to set a special meeting, which is going to happen, I believe, next week on August 1st. And that meeting is going to readdress the rules that were passed a couple of weeks ago that caused all of this fervor. And that is the background that leads up to the breaking news today. And the breaking news today is that the State Board of Health has posted the agenda for that meeting, and they have also posted a draft of the new rules. And if you voted for medical cannabis in Oklahoma and you were upset by these modifications to the program, you will likely be very happy at the proposed rule changes. So the new rules would dispense with the requirement of having a pharmacist in the dispensary. You see what I did there? So no pharmacists in dispensaries. It would eliminate the cap on THC concentration for growers from 12% to no cap. It would eliminate the requirement that that women undergo a pregnancy test and have a negative pregnancy test before getting a license. It would reinstate smokable forms of marijuana. And it would eliminate the rule stating that dispensaries cannot be located within 1,000 feet of a school.
Interesting.
It would remove churches from that rule. So the rule said that dispensaries cannot be located within 1,000 feet of a church or a school. It will remove churches from that requirement. So they still can't be within 1,000 feet of a school, but they can be next door to a church.
Which is fine.
Right. I believe those are the main rule changes, and those I think.
And you can buy it on Sundays, right?
Yes, and you can also buy it on Sundays. So those I think
so you can leave church and go next door.
Right. Those changes I think address all of the concerns that I have heard from proponents of the medical cannabis.
Yeah, I think so.
So assuming that nothing else untoward happens, which is assuming a lot because there's 5 days between now and August 1st, and the way this has gone down, 5 things will happen every day. So assuming there are no other changes, the State Board of Health will meet on Wednesday. They'll pass those amended rules, and everyone can just take a deep breath or sit back and smoke a bowl or whatever you do to relax.
Right. So we're going to try to get either Senator Greg McCourtney or House Rep John or Majority Leader John Eccles here on the podcast maybe next week to discuss this. I had to tune out before the end of the meeting. Do you know if the working group is meeting again?
I assume they'll meet again. I don't know when.
Okay. Maybe we can find out. Try to get them on the phone for next week.
Do you happen to know, did they have any representatives from the medical community there?
I think so.
To give testimony on medical marijuana?
Yes. I believe they had. I only caught about half of the meeting. But I believe that they did have people kind of from both sides. The part that I caught, and I just because I had to go pick up my kids, I didn't get the rest, was that they it was the proponent side, and they were trying to kind of ask like, what was the original intent of this law? How did
anyone say to get recreational marijuana?
No, I mean they were
because that was the intent of the law.
No, it was really earnest and like really just kind of personable and pretty authentic. It's the guy from Green the Vote who's like really highly regarded in this and does this is a real business for him. Just his manner of speaking was so disarming, and several of the legislators appreciated his candor because he was very professional and a little bit he sounded. I mean, he was like. He didn't sound like a pothead, but he sounded just like probably the kind of guy that's into this. Like he was pretty chill and just like, I mean, he wasn't like, man, like just.
He wasn't the dude, but he wasn't like, wow, he wasn't wound up tight.
Right. Come on, Walter.
If you don't know that reference, shame on you. And if you are feeling ashamed now, your assignment this weekend is to go on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, wherever you watch your movies, and watch The Big Lebowski.
That's just like your opinion, man.
A point of advice: do not do the internet game where you watch The Big Lebowski and make yourself a White Russian every time the dude drinks a White Russian.
Oh, right.
Don't do that.
I heard today in a meeting that some people were at a OU Texas watch party, and that they had a drinking game where you took a shot of tequila every time the television announcers said the name Bob Stoops, and this is during Bob Stoops' era. So by the end of the first quarter, everyone was like, "We got to quit playing this," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't
even imagine that."
No, I don't think that seems like you might as well just said you're going to take a shot whenever they use the word "and."
Right. No, I've heard people play this game with Big Lebowski, where you try to like either take a shot or like, I don't think it's even that you drink a whole White Russian. It's that you have to take a drink every time the dude drinks a White Russian. And I'm just gonna let you know that is a great, like, that's a fast lane trip down the road to
hepatitis, right?
Alcoholic hepatitis or alcohol poisoning. Like, believe, like, I'm not being. This is not a read between the lines moment. When I'm saying don't do that, I'm actually saying, for the love of God, don't do that.
It's also just a lot of milk, and we've all seen the milk challenge where you can't drink a whole gallon.
Yeah. So that is your recreation, your medical marijuana update for the day. But as has become our habit and pattern here on Let's Fix This, our news article in our news roundup today is also cannabis related. This is recreational cannabis. There are 2 state questions moving forward right now. They have very nearly all the signatures that they need to get these on the ballot. We've got an article by Dale Denwalt, great journalist at News OK and the Oklahoman. For recreational marijuana in Oklahoma, the November vote might be too early. So we had this discussion last week, and we've had it in some other meetings that we've been in on whether or not recreational marijuana, should they get the number of signatures that they need, which is 124,000 valid signatures by August 8th, whether they would be able to get recreational cannabis on the ballot in November. Mm-hmm. I think you and I made a gentleman's agreement about this. You said it won't be, and I said it will be. It looks like, I'm not giving up hope, but it looks like you're going to win. So this article,
hot diggity,
really digs into the kind of the nitty gritty, if you will, about how state questions work and what has to happen in order for a state question to be placed on the ballot.
Because some of this is like in statute,
right?
In the law,
right?
In the way the Constitution is written, that there are some numbers that are definitively articulated,
right?
Like they have to have everything done 70 days prior to the election,
right,
in order to have time to put it on the ballot,
right.
However, it typically takes 60 days to like validate all the signatures,
right? So they need 124,000 signatures. They need those by August 8th, right? However, once you turn in the signatures, they have to be validated, right? And so if you ever have wondered what the Secretary of State does in the state of Oklahoma, this is one of the things. And the Secretary of State, James Williamson, had said that his office will have to hire employees, train those employees, and then have them count the signatures, and that could take 2 weeks. Now, it seems like that since this is one of their big responsibilities and there are state questions all the time, they should already have employees that know how to validate signatures. But that's,
well, it's not employees, it's like contract, because it's not all the time.
Right, but
then they have to be verified by the Supreme Court.
Right. And so essentially the other important date here, so August 8th is the date by which they have to have the signatures. However, the last day that Governor Fallon can add questions to the November ballot is August the 27th. Mm-hmm. So they have 19 days in between. So even if they turn in the signatures on time on August 8th, even if the signatures are all validated, then they turn them into the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to certify them, and that usually takes 8 to 10 days, all right? And then after that, according to state law, the organizers of state questions have to put a public notice in a newspaper, and they have to wait 10 business days in case somebody wants to challenge the signatures. If there's no challenge, only then can you put the state question on the ballot. And I'm going to go ahead and say someone is going to challenge the signatures. Like that's
someone's going to.
That's going to happen.
Well, because you typically get like 20% more signatures,
right,
as a buffer in case they throw some out. Because what happens if anything on that page is off a little bit, they throw the whole page out.
Right. And so that's why they need 124,000 signatures. They're collecting 150.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's do some quick math here. 150,000 signatures, and they have 19 days, you said? Does that count weekends?
No, they have 19 days not to get the signatures.
Right. But to get them validated before the deadline.
Yeah.
So that is, they would have to validate them at a pace of 7,895 signatures per day. In an 8-hour day, that's basically they have to validate 1,000 signatures a day, which
seems like a lot.
Not a small task, right? I mean, if you've got 30 people doing it, that's one thing, but that's not the way this works. There's no reason to hire that many people,
right? And so Isaac Kevinis, is that how you say his name? He's president of Green the Vote, and he said if he gets the signatures turned in by August 8th, and the government does everything as quickly as they can, he says we should have a 3-day window. I think that the biggest hurdle there is getting them certified and then not getting a legal challenge, and there will be a legal challenge, I think. I mean, I think there's enough. The opposition to this in some quarters of Oklahoma is fierce enough that I think the signatures will be challenged. I think there's also a cohort of people who do not want recreational cannabis on the ballot in 2018.
Well, someone will file it even if they don't care,
right?
Just to delay it, to get it not on this ballot, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is there's enough people who don't want it, even if they don't care about marijuana, they don't want it on this ballot,
right?
And so they'll challenge them for that reason.
Did in our previous discussion of medical marijuana, did you mention that you can now apply online? That's live?
I didn't, because I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. So there's a new website for all of this. That is, it's the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Association. And if you go to omma.ok.gov, that's Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Association.ok.gov. They've got a pretty quick and easy website. It's surprisingly well done. It has the draft of the emergency rules that will be voted on next week. It has the summary of the rule revisions. It's got the application information, adult patient, minor patient information, temporary patient if you're from out of state, caregiver, grower, processor, dispensary, and transportation application information. Information for physicians. Hello, Dr. Milson. And research application information. And then stuff about 788, the passage, all that stuff. A dedicated website. It's pretty handy. Here's what I'll say about this. In spite of the stuff going on at the health department with certain individuals, right? And I want to differentiate here between the health department being the several thousand good, solid, salt of the earth Oklahomans who are doing this public health work, and the 2 or 3 people who are really screwing things up for everybody else.
That happen to be the ones in charge.
Right, yeah, the people at the top that are just the bad apples and giving this great organization a bad name. Somehow in this, the organization has done a couple of great things. One, they pulled up all these rules and a dedicated website for this and a dedicated email address. omma@ok.gov is up there. I think there's still a job opening to run this organization as well. They've done this pretty quickly. Also, on a totally unrelated note, but if you are an organization or a business and you would like to provide free condoms to people coming in, you can apply, and the health department now has a method to get you condoms to stock in your bar, your restaurant, your coffee shop, your hangout place, whatever, your cyber cafe. That's a thing. Condoms@health.ok.gov. That's the email address.
Do you just go up to the guy that's working at the cyber cafe and be like, hey dude,
no, you go to the bowl.
You got any condoms?
You just go to the jar or whatever and pull them. Take them yourself.
But, I mean, would you do that? Would you just be walking out of a coffee shop and then there's a bowl of condoms there and
you need
just
condoms,
reach in and grab
why
some?
not? They're free if you need them. I mean, you can go to the store and pay extra money for name brand Trojans that aren't any better than other ones, or you're at the coffee shop and you grab them and you go.
I don't like have an ethical or like moral problem with it. I mean,
there are some stigma things, but if more people do this, then it's less stigmatized. That's more normal.
I mean, that's 100%.
I mean, not everybody's doing it, but like this is a normal part of life for every species on the planet.
Oh no,
not all species use condoms.
I think we're probably unique in that way. No, I get that obviously, but that's just that's interesting. I didn't know.
So there you go. It's really aimed at nonprofit like social services organizations who may not otherwise have a agreement in place with the State Department of Health. But this is a great way for health clinics.
I'm just imagining, it's 1:30 in the morning. Attention everybody, we are about to take last call at the bar, so please, if you need another drink tonight, come up and place your order, close out your tab. Also, on your way out,
grab a couple of rubbers.
Don't forget to get a condom. Thank you.
Right. But in a state that leads the country in teen birth, in chlamydia, syphilis, gonorrhea, these things, like, that's not a terrible idea. In fact, it's a pretty damn great idea.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. Like on the merits of like more people should use condoms. It's just that's interesting to me. Had never occurred to me that would be a like delivery method.
I mean, here's to break it down, and we're way off topic now per the entire episode. But to break it down, like using your scenario, right? It's the end of the night. It's last call. You're at a bar, club, whatever. And you've had a few drinks, you're Ubering home with your date that you've met or whatever.
Or your wife.
Right. She's still your date. You met her sometime. Partner, person of interest.
Whoever.
Right. Anyway, you're going home and you think you might even get lucky, right? And you're a guy or a girl. Doesn't matter. Anybody can grab these, right? The smart, like let's say you don't have any protection with you. It's not in your purse, your wallet, whatever. You don't have any at home. And you should use it, but you're not going to ask your Uber driver to swing by Walgreens so you can run in and buy a pack of Trojans.
Yeah.
But you might just grab a couple of condoms out of the bowl at the bar to go home and do the right thing and protect yourself and protect your partner.
I totally agree. As I'm thinking this through, I feel like the restroom might be the best strategic placement.
Okay. Well, a lot of places might be able to buy they can buy a fishbowl. In fact, I think you can get them. They come like in a little, like a fishbowl turned on its side, kind of, but like a container for them. Yeah, put it in the bathroom.
This thing has come off the rails.
This is what I do for a living. Take things off the rails. That's
great. That is, I think without question, that's great public health policy. Like I don't think there's any argument with that. And your point about the health department as an organization that is doing good work and that they've got they have regulations in place to regulate to establish and govern a brand new industry for the state within 30 days. I mean, that's impressive. That's not a small thing.
No.
And so I
Some
think
said it couldn't be done.
They do deserve to be commended. But all that to say, recreational for this November, probably not going to happen. Whether that's good or bad, is kind of really where you sit on the issue. But probably that's not going to happen. Next up, now that we're 45 minutes into the podcast, number 2 on our news roundup.
Do you want to talk about Star Trek again?
I mean, we can. I'll be a little bit out of my element, but we can talk about. We can go.
The politics of Star Trek would be a fascinating episode.
Dude, we can go Star Wars all day.
No, Star Wars is different, but also there's a Federation and there's
our next pod, Star Wars.
What about Star Trek?
I mean, it's fine.
All right.
We'll discuss this later. We have 2 articles. The first one for our next item is from News OK. Trade war threatens $208 million of Oklahoma exports. So we try to stay away, other than Brewer Watch, we try to stay away from major national stories here, not because those aren't important and not because they don't affect your life, because they do, but we really try to kind of be hyper local here on the pod and talk about what's happening in Oklahoma City on a day-to-day basis, because for obvious reasons that doesn't get near as much coverage. However, this is one that we felt was really worth getting into the weeds a little bit. President Trump has, as fulfilling a campaign pledge that he made, has instituted a wide-ranging system of tariffs on countries with which the United States has bilateral trade. This includes Canada, Mexico, the European Union, and China. President Trump campaigned on cracking down on what he describes as unfair trade practices in which, as he sees it, other countries are taking advantage of the United States. I'm trying not to be just super talking down to the president, but he seems to think that when the United States has a trade deficit with a nation, that means that they owe us money or that they are stealing from us in some way, which is not the case. You can have a legitimate argument whether or not having a trade deficit is a good or a bad thing, but he will say that we had a $500 million trade deficit with the European Union last year, like they're stealing from us, and that's, to be clear, that's just not what that means. However, he has put some tariffs on pork. He's put tariffs on steel. He's put tariffs on iron. And as many people have anticipated, when he enacted these tariffs on other countries, those other countries responded by putting tariffs on products that are exported from the United States. This is according to News OK. Right now, there's about $208 million of products that are made here in Oklahoma that are typically exported that are in danger of decreasing in value or not being able to be exported because of these retaliatory tariffs. And just so you know, that $208 million translates to 401,000 jobs that are dependent on trade in 3 industries.
That's all in Oklahoma?
All in Oklahoma.
Whoa.
That's export of meat, mostly pork, and then iron, steel pipes, and cotton. This is all according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Roy Lindsay, who is executive director of the Oklahoma Pork Council, side note, when you go to the fair this year, and you should go to the fair, you need to go to the Oklahoma Pork Council booth, and you need to eat their sandwich. It's going to change your life.
Really?
Just letting you know.
I had no idea.
Oklahoma Pork Council. Roy Lindsay says we're an industry that's growing and rapidly all across the country, and that growth is, quote, all predicated on exports. Pork farmers export about 27.5% of their product. So when you can't export that, that means that you get a buildup of supply. And when you get a buildup of supply, Andrew, what happens?
Prices go down.
Prices go down. And if prices go down and you're a pork farmer, is that good or bad for you?
Terrible.
That's not good, right? The other thing...
You can't bring home the bacon, as they say.
Right. The other thing is that there are tariffs on imported steel. We have an industry in Oklahoma that is highly dependent on imported steel. Andy, thoughts on what industry that might be?
Well, maybe the one that they're building the big metal rig thing that also uses a metal drill that goes down in the ground.
You are correct, sir.
Ding, ding,
100
ding.
points for you. So pipeline infrastructure, refineries, drilling, petroleum extraction, all of this requires steel, and most of the steel that they use is imported. So, we heard, back in the spring when we were talking about going gross production tax from 2% to 5%, we heard a lot about how much that was going to destroy the energy industry in Oklahoma. I am curious if we're going to hear now that imported steel just got a whole lot more expensive, how much we're going to hear from industry about what that is going to do to energy in Oklahoma.
Yeah, such a weird deal because, it's an industry that I think that most Trump policies have had a pretty positive impact, and so all of a sudden now this happens, and now they've got to go to Washington and be like, hey,
right,
man, Mr. President,
right.
I know you're trying to do what you think is right, but let me tell you how it's hurting us.
Right. Well, and just philosophically, if you're a Republican in particular, as I've talked about on the show, I'm a Democrat. I think of myself as, depending on the issue, I try not to be too broad a brush, but I'm probably fairly progressive by most people's stance. But when it comes to trade, I am firmly in the camp of trade. I think that free trade, by and large, is good for the economy. I think it's good for the world. And I don't think the tariffs are an effective way, again, when used as kind of a blunt instrument, I don't think the tariffs are a particularly effective way to kind of punish another country, at least not when they're being used the way that they're used here. And they're having, where our economy is doing well in Oklahoma right now, and this is a danger to it. And I'm just really curious, both from a policy standpoint and a political standpoint, how does this impact how does this impact the support that Oklahomans give the president? Number one, and in whatever way it does, if it does, how does it impact what the electorate looks like here locally and what happens in November?
Right.
Like, does that like if the tariffs lead to Oklahomans being less supportive of the president as a whole, does that change the voting patterns of Oklahomans as a whole in November, a year when the president's not on the ballot?
I don't think people are going to pay close enough attention to this kind of issue.
I think that you are probably right, except that farmers across the country are already feeling this. Like, it's been estimated that the soybean industry alone has lost $13 billion
Right.
from these tariffs.
Well, I agree with that, but a lot of those companies are multinational farms, not mom and pop voters.
True. That's absolutely true. But all that to say, check out that article on News OK. Related to that, this is a separate article, but we're kind of putting in the same subject line. There's an article from Politico that is talking about how the president, how his administration is planning to tackle this. And the short story is using two like commodity support programs that are in the Farm Bill, so they don't require authorization from Congress for new spending. Sidetrack, quick civics lesson. Congress has the power of the purse, so if the government wants to spend money, Congress has to appropriate it. However, if money has already been appropriated, sometimes there is discretionary spending, and this program falls under that. So this is $12 billion that the president can spend and doesn't have to ask anybody's permission. Okay, they have used announced a plan to use these two commodity support programs and you distribute about $12 billion to farmers across the country to kind of offset the effect of these tariffs. Right. Now, just to come full circle here, and again, if you think I'm wrong or you think this is I'm getting too partisan, I just call me out, I guess. But the president instituted tariffs. The countries against which he instituted tariffs issued retaliatory tariffs. That has caused the income of farmers to go down because prices have dropped. So the president is going to use taxpayer funds to support the farmers and the income that they've lost because of the tariffs that he instituted.
Well, so I will again highlight that's circular. That's just money from your left pocket going to your right pocket.
Right.
Secondly, while this will affect some Oklahomans, undoubtedly, agriculture is a big business here. This more proportionally and to a greater proportion affects big business, like big ag, which are often companies that are headquartered in China. China? They're over in
China.
In China. And so
that's our President Trump impersonation, in case anyone was not clear.
Not gonna do it. And so
Hashtag sad.
He's going to give money back to farmers, but a lot of that money is going to go to other multinational companies who are not actually Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Now, some, yes, I will agree. And like for those people, this matters a lot. I'm just saying a big chunk of change is going out of the country again.
And the thing is, it didn't have to be this way. Like, I understand he's trying to hit China. Now, I'm not an expert on international trade or economics, but to me, if you want to hit China, the way that you do it is to, maybe form like an organization of like all the countries that are around China and get them all together and negotiate a widespread trade agreement between all of those countries so that it puts all of those countries kind of together where they're on the same side, where they're trading with each other, but they're not trading with China. And that way you have a lot of leverage. You can say, hey, we have this organization of like 15 countries that all trade with each other and none of them are going to trade with you. And if you want to be part of it, you can, but if you are going to do that, then here's what you have to give us. Here's concession A, B, and C that we want from you if you want access to this market of like 15 countries. Like, to me, that seems like a better way to do it. Just so everybody knows, there's a thing called the Trans-Pacific Partnership that we spent the last like 7 years negotiating. And
didn't he get out of it though?
Yeah, and that was the thing that President Trump ran on, was we're going to get out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership so that we can use tariffs to go after China instead of staying in the TPP and using the combined clout of 15 separate markets, including the U.S. and Japan, and use that clout to go after China.
Well,
but that's fine.
I'm not convinced that he knows what he's doing all the time. Nor do I. But
nice save.
But my decisions don't affect
the world.
400 million people.
The world. All right, so that's it for trade and trade subsidies. Next up, we've got an article from the Tulsa World. This is a short article, but I thought it was still worth mentioning. Guess what? Good news for the state of Oklahoma. We're going to put estimated $370 million in our rainy day fund this year. Currently, the balance is at $70 million because we've spent it down over the last 4 years.
Well, spent it down several times.
Yes, and have not made a deposit since 2014, I believe.
Right.
But we are estimated to deposit $370 million in the rainy day fund this year. Another kind of piece, another article, another piece of info that goes along with that comes from the energy index. The energy index is what is that noise? The energy index is published by Oklahoma Energy Today. It is a project of the OIPA, the Oklahoma Independent Petroleum Association, and the Stephen C. Agee Economic Research and Policy Institute. And the Oklahoma Energy Index shows that Oklahoma's oil and gas industry is doing pretty well, undergoing a significant period of expansion, drilling a lot of wells, hiring a lot of people, strong gains in crude oil prices. Index has grown by 14.3% from 1 year ago. Industry added 2,000 new jobs in May.
Whoa.
2,000 new jobs in May. 9,000 jobs in the last year.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. What I don't remember. So in the
I don't believe you already, but go ahead.
In the spring, we were having a discussion about needing new revenue to pay for like classroom expenses and a teacher raise, and part of that discussion was increasing. There was a tax we were going to talk about.
That was the gross production tax.
That's right.
Scott.
It was the gross production tax on oil and natural gas.
Yeah, that's right.
And we talked about increasing it from 2% to 5%.
Yes, quite right.
I feel like there was, there were some people saying that if we did that, that would just be just like the death knell for energy in Oklahoma.
Yes, well, Scott, there was some consternation concerning the gross production tax. There was members of the industry that thought that it would be quite the death blow, if you will, and indeed it is not.
Well, we did it, and they hired 2,000 people 2 months ago.
2,000 humans toiling away in the fields of western Oklahoma.
Or sitting on computers.
Also, very smart people, landmen, if you will, analysts.
So we included this just to say we increased taxes, and Governor Fallon, as well as I believe State Treasurer, said that the bulk of this $370 million that we're supposed to put in the rainy day fund this year is coming from new revenue. It's not just from the fact that the economy is doing better. Most of it is coming from the fact that we raised taxes, and so there's new money coming in. And simultaneously, while that was happening, the energy industry was also doing gangbusters. So all that to say, we can have the gross production tax at a reasonable level that funds state core services, and the energy industry can make a shit ton of money. Both of those things can happen at the same time.
It can. However, Scott, I will caution you to not get too optimistic. As we know, sometimes the price of oil goes up, and other times it goes down.
What is this voice you're doing?
I don't know. I really intended to do this week
new.
The entire time with an accent of some kind of funny voice.
I mean,
But don't I sound smarter?
I'm not against it. I'm not saying that it needs to go away. I'm just saying that I didn't see it coming.
Perhaps next week we speak about the politics of Star Wars or Star Trek entirely, and we both speak with voices that are not our own.
I will tell you that I have a reputation as being really bad at accents. I do accents, but the thing is, they all tend to come out as German.
Oh, that's right. Or Russian. That's all of yours do.
No matter what accent I'm doing, they're all German or Russian.
But we could talk about Star Trek. What if next week It's Star Trek politics.
Now, see, this is your Captain Kirk, right?
It was a terrible Captain Kirk. I need to work on it. I've never done it before, so that was the first go. It's never good.
It's our next. That's our next podcast is
In 2 weeks.
Scott and Andy's interpretation and impersonations. Next up, I'm only going to talk about this. This is going to be really, really brief because it's a really long article, but it is 100% worth your time. This is by Brianna Bailey at The Frontier. Please check it out.
A mind-blowing.
Yes.
Get some tissues.
Yes.
Go ahead and get ready.
Yes.
Settle in, because this is going to make you want to join the fight.
Yes. This is seriously, please, read this article. It's called The Meat Man versus the State of Oklahoma. It's about a gentleman named Laverne Berryhill who died in prison for stealing $52 worth of meat from an Oklahoma City grocery store.
Pause. $52.
Yes.
Worth of meat.
Yes. In 1990, he was 33 years old, and an Oklahoma judge sentenced him to 40 years in prison for shoplifting. Now, I think that there is one point that's important to make here. One of the reasons that he was sentenced to such a long, one of the reasons that he was put in prison for such a long time was because he had so many prior convictions. Mr. Berryhill was a drug addict. He engaged in theft repeatedly to support that habit. However, he was always careful to steal under $50 because if you stole under $50, that was a misdemeanor, and you could only be sentenced. There were limitations into how long you could serve in prison as long as it was a misdemeanor. So he always tried to steal under $50. However, one time he made a mistake. He stole $52. And when that happened, they threw the book at him because he had such a long criminal history. And I'm not saying, and I only bring that up because I love The Frontier, and I think Brianna does fantastic work. I think that to say he was sentenced to 40 years in prison because he stole $52 worth of meat, I think that the full story is he was sentenced to 40 years in prison because he stole $52 worth of meat after having spent the last 10 years stealing things $45 at a time. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't mean that that's what should have happened. What should have happened is this guy should have gotten treatment for the substance abuse disorder that he suffered from and not died in prison. That's what should have happened. But I think that there would be maybe some pushback on the idea that it was this one thing. He committed this one crime and got put in prison for the rest of his life.
No, but this article does a great job of highlighting the larger issue that we all know exists, is that we have terrible infrastructure in our criminal justice system.
100%.
To help redirect. And by his own admission, he's I need to get out of this. I need to get off this crack.
Right.
I need to do things differently.
So. Right. No, that's really... We could literally do a whole podcast talking about this, and maybe we should have Brianna on and talk about it because it's such a fascinating and tragic story. But please go to The Frontier and check it out.
And speaking of criminal justice, if you are interested, if you really want to make a difference at this, and this is something you're passionate about, and you want to do this full time, the good people at OK Policy are hiring. They got a new grant to do a project about this.
Do it.
And it looks great. It seems like a great job. And if you are at all interested in this, man, go up there. They need your help, and you could dive into this, and it'd be a really great thing for America, at least for Oklahoma.
America. So
all right.
I believe that our last article today is a very recent post. Some breaking news this afternoon from Nondoc. Andrew, would you like to?
I've got that one right here, Scott. Dateline, Oklahoma City. PSO, which is the Public Service Company of Oklahoma, announced today that it's going to cancel the $4.5 billion, that's billion with a B, bravo, Wind Catcher project. So the Wind Catcher project, you may have heard about it, maybe in passing. This was a giant wind farm that was going to go out in the panhandle of Oklahoma, where there's lots of wind and not much else. And it was going to be out there. It's going to be the largest wind farm in the country, in the entire continent in North America.
If you're in the Panhandle, we know that there's also beef cattle. There's beef cattle
and pigs,
cattle, corn, soy, pigs, and wind.
Yeah, alfalfa.
Yes.
Anyway,
proceed.
But you can grow many of those things beneath the wind farm, right?
I believe all of them.
All of them. I don't think any of them are tall enough to reach the wind turbines. Anyway, this would have been a huge deal, and it's been talked about for a long time. Now, we had heard, again, there was some consternation concerning the wind catcher project from landowners because if you build a big wind turbine and it spins when the wind blows and it generates energy with the turbine inside, that energy has to get back into the grid somehow. And so it gets back in the grid through big old fat wires, right? Big high voltage electric wires that run, I think they run underground between them. Eventually it goes up and goes on a pole, and it's got to go back into the grid.
The really, really high the really, really high voltage, 200, 250,000, I think it's actually 200, 220, 250,000 volt transmission lines, those run above ground.
Right. Those big, enormous ones, and on the big metal looks like a person.
Yeah. Those run above ground because the cost to bury them is astronomical, and two, if something happened and one of them broke, you wouldn't want to have to wait to dig it up to figure out what the problem is. So those run above ground.
Yeah, and you can see it as easy. It's tough to find out where it broke.
Correct.
But if it's broken up in the air, you can just look up and be like, oh, there.
But yeah, this is a big deal, and it's a big deal. And interestingly, PSO made the decision to cancel the project predominantly because of a decision that was made by the Texas
in Tejas. That's right.
Yeah, the Texas Public Utilities.
Yeah. So, and this was kind of expected. So the Public Utility Commission of Texas announced that. What did they announce? It just says decision. They rejected the project as proposed, saying it doesn't offer benefits for rate payers, meaning customers, you and I, as currently structured. So they're canceling it, and I will say this. So it's big news today. There's always a chance that they could rejigger this and come back and be like, it's back on, right?
Yeah.
Like they haven't actually spent the money yet. My understanding is that there are probably some kind of tax incentives involved in this coming from the state of Oklahoma to the wind industry.
Yep.
Do you believe that?
Yep.
To be true?
Yep.
And so it's a big deal. It would mean some jobs, not 9,000 jobs, but maybe a few hundred jobs.
Sure.
And they're probably high-paying jobs.
Yep.
Also, this project, the wind catcher project, would have been good for the environment. It would have been good, and my understanding also is that some of these wind companies are also owned from international, multinational companies. So
yes.
It might not have been, not all the wind is from here, but not all the energy or all the money stays here.
Got news. Some of the biggest oil companies in Oklahoma have significant investment from offshore multinationals.
Boom.
So,
well, and also some of the some of the wind companies like this, in order to build the wind farm, you gotta have trucks, you gotta have energy, and a lot of that comes from oil companies. And so that it could have been a boon both ways. So
I mean, this kind of gets to my overall argument concerning tariffs and trade. Like, economic activity is good for everyone, right? Like the more economic activity you have across industries, the better.
Right.
And there are times that even an industry that would seem to compete with yours, the fact that they're because the wind industry, right? Like the oil industry says, well, we don't like wind because they're a competitor. Yeah, but all those people that they employ, that they pay, those techs that they pay $150,000 a year to work on the windmills, those guys have families. They drive cars. They heat their homes, right? When they buy that SUV that burns twice the gas that their older car did, that benefits oil and gas, right? Like, the economy works together. So I know there were people that were opposed to wind catcher. There were people in favor of it. I think anytime your state has the opportunity to have $4.5 billion in investment, even if it only creates, a few hundred jobs that are permanent, I don't see how that's a bad thing.
Hey man, tax money is tax money.
Yeah. So we have covered today Ghostbusters 2, Vigo the Carpathian, Carpathians in general, Kardashians, not to be confused with Cardassians, condoms in bars, coffee shops, internet cafes, and just the general availability of condoms overall, a generalized theory of macroeconomics, marijuana,
energy, oil and gas,
marijuana again, nothing about Scott Pruitt other than seeing if we can get him on the show. I feel like that's a pretty full day.
We didn't have a Pruitt watch this week, did we?
I mean, I've got an article that we can use if we want to just keep the streak going.
I mean, do you have it pulled up handy? Because I feel like the only thing this episode is missing, aside from my kitchen sink, is maybe a brief Pruitt watch.
Let's get our music, dude.
It's right here. I'm on it. I've actually added 2 new sounds to our soundboard while you were talking earlier.
That's amazing. So, from the New York Times, we have a piece that talks about how the new chief of the EPA, the gentleman that now has the job that was held by Administrator Pruitt not that long ago, Andrew Wheeler, has reversed the final policy act of his predecessor, Scott Pruitt. So, as we just discussed last week, Mr. Pruitt had sought to grant a loophole for so-called glider trucks. These are tractor-trailer semis that have engines that emit significantly more fumes and pollutants than newer trucks.
These are old trucks.
Yeah, they yes, with rebuilt engines. Mr. Pruitt had put in place, or had basically tried to allow for an exemption to a rule that said you can only manufacture 300 of these trucks a year. That ruling was stayed by a court, and in the face of what was apparently an almost certain judicial defeat, Mr. Wheeler has decided that he will reverse that policy, not grant the loophole, and there will only be a certain number of glider trucks allowed to be produced this year.
All right. Is this basically the same update as last week?
No, it's a new update.
Total different one. Last week was just they were going to...
Last week was the court issued the stay, and they were going to see what happened.
Right.
This week is Administrator Wheeler is like, yeah, about that, no.
All right.
So Mr. Pruitt's final act as EP Administrator has been kiboshed.
All right, well, there you have it, folks.
Consider yourself to have watched Pruitt.
That's right. I believe that's all we have. Scott, can you think of anything else possible?
No, man. Just everybody plan on coming out in November 6th, Tower Theater, 6 p.m. We will be there. I really do I think it's gonna be a good time. We are already working on guests. We're working on kind of the AV, like what the presentation will be like. Working on food, drinks. We want as many people possible as there. I don't know what the capacity is at the Tower Theater.
7,000.
But I want it to be. I want people turned away at the door because there are too many of you guys there.
Should we have a raffle? Some kind of raffle.
Yeah, deal done. We'll
T-shirts?
have a raffle.
We'll raffle some T-shirts.
Yes.
Ooh. Okay, I've got one more thing. Coming soon, we're going to have some Let's Fix This lapel pins you can purchase if you want to wear it. Wear your little red button all the time. They are an enamel, soft enamel lapel pin. If you like Nathan Poppy's Poppy pins, these are the same company. It's a great deal.
I have an unhealthy level of excitement for these lapel pins.
We had a bit of a flaw in the original manufacturing process, but they should be here within a week or two. They'll be on our website, available for purchase. I think for $10, which is a hell of a deal. All right, and also we would like to do a new segment. Two new segments. One is the Let's Pod This mailbag. And so for that, we need you, listeners, to send us a quick question. So send your question to podcast@letsfixthisok.org. Podcast@letsfixthisok.org. That email will go to both Scott and I. And each week we'll respond to some viewer questions, comments. We'd love to hear from you. If there's something you'd like to have discussed, someone you want us to talk to, if you yourself would like to come on, send us an email.
Yeah, we're just two guys that do this in my office.
Speaking of which, Peter, if you're listening, we haven't forgot about you. Your email is still in my inbox, and maybe we'll try to have you on in the next week or two.
And get you your tote bag.
I will send you an email. I have your tote bag somewhere handy. Secondly, we're going to start including a question for you, and this is how it's going to work. Starting next week, because we're not prepared right now. Starting next week, we're going to give you a question, a reader question. This will be early on in the episode, top of the episode. Question for readers for you to respond to. And you can respond on Twitter, on Facebook, or via email. We'd love to kind of get your responses, and we'll share some of those and make this a two-way discussion. Because the other podcasts you listen to, they're not hearing back from you. It's not a two-way thing. We want this to be a two-way thing. Why? Because we're all in this together. We're all Oklahomans.
I think that'll do it.
I think this is a Ghostbusters theme.
Yes.
This is the new version by Walk the Moon. All right. We'll wait for it to kick off.
If you've never seen Ghostbusters, you need to make that happen.
So good.
The first one is definitely better than the second one, but they're both excellent.
But Vigo, the Carpathian, is in the second one.
No.
All right, it's the end of the episode. Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Let's fix this okay. I'm just going to fade this out here. All right, that's all we got of that. You want to hear Ghostbusters?
I like Ghostbusters.
Well,
for today. There's a lot of posts to do on this episode.
I'm going to have to... What is this? All right. There's a Pentatonics version? Oh, damn.
I'm sure it's great, but no.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Let's Fix This Okay. And it's letsfixthisok.org. Scott is at SC Melson. Andy is at AndyOKC. Member of the Mostly Harmless Media Network. Our theme music is normally provided by Sugar Free All Stars. Today we're stealing it from Ghostbusters. Nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We want you to vote. We want you to show up on November 6th for our post-election party. Tell your friends. Bring them to the polls with you. Bring them to the Tower Theater with you at 6 p.m. See you next week.